In this video, we're going to go over how you can create a question bank to use when you're giving quizzes on Moodle. A question bank is basically a course level repository for questions that you can add to quizzes. You would use a question bank if maybe you wanted to prepare your questions in advance, and then when it came time to actually give the quiz, you'd have those questions all ready, so all you'd need to do is add them to your quiz. So in a previous video, we've already created the quiz now, which you can see we have here at the bottom. We have quiz 2 that's already been created. And now if you want to go ahead and put the questions on that quiz, you can create a question bank to do so. So to start, we're going to access our question bank. And the question bank used to be in the gear on the right-hand side, but it's now moved to the course admin settings here at the top. So if you click on more, you're going to see where it says question bank. Now, there are a few settings here that you're going to see that you're not familiar with because those are updates that have been made with Moodle 4.0, and we're going to go over those later on in the video. But really, at the heart of it, the creation of the question bank and the creation of the questions as well is pretty much the exact same as it was before. The first thing we're going to do is create a category to put our questions into. And a category is a great tool to use to organize your questions so it's easy to find what you're looking for. Sometimes people will create categories based on topics. Sometimes they'll create categories based on the exam itself. So if you have an exam 1 category, all of the questions inside of that category will relate to exam 1. Let's go ahead and create a category. So I'm going to, from the drop-down menu here, choose categories. It's going to take me to this page here where you can see I have a default category here, which is where all of the questions are going to go if you don't designate a category for them to go into. And I have one that's already created here as well. So we're going to click Add Category. And I'm just going to create a basic one that will house multiple different kinds of questions. So we're going to do Disney Trivia. And when you're making a category, that's really all you need to do is put a name for it and press Add Category. Now you can see we have our Disney Trivia, and in parentheses there is a 0 there, which is telling us that there are no questions inside of this category. We are going to create 2 questions so that way you can see what it looks like to do that, and that number will then change. So now that we've created our category, we want to add questions to go inside of it. So you can click into the category this way, and that will put you where you need to be. And you can click Create a New Question. You can see that there are so many different choices here that you have, but we're going to do multiple choice and true false for this video. But you're welcome to check out all of these other options you have and see how they fit for the kind of quiz that you are creating. So we're going to click multiple choice and press Add. The very first option here is the question name. This is not where you're going to put the question itself. This is going to be a title that you're going to put here, which will allow you to differentiate this question from others once you have them all in one group. So let's put in a question name here, and then let's put in the question text here is the actual question you're asking the students. We have our question now, and we can go down to the next option here. So this is one of the first changes with 4.0, and that's the question status. If you look at the drop-down menu, you have a ready status and you have a draft status. Ready means this question is ready to be used. You don't have to make any changes to it. You're okay if this goes onto a quiz. The draft is this question is going to be something that you're not quite sure if you're ready to make public yet. Maybe you're still working on it. Maybe you've only done the question and you're still working on the answers. So if you're not prepared to have this question be on your test, you want to make it a draft, and you can always change that later. We're going to leave ours as ready because I'm okay with this question. You want to be mindful of editing questions that are already in use on an exam. So let's say you have a version of a question that is active and then 5 students take that quiz. If you switch that question to a draft, the question is going to automatically change to the next ready version of that question. So you'll just want to make sure that you are aware of that, or that quiz has already closed before you make any changes to the status of that question. So moving on, we're going to see we have general feedback here, which we can add if we wish for this question, and we'll tell whether it has one or multiple answers. In this case, our question only has one answer, and it's asking if we want to shuffle the choices, which means do we want to shuffle the answers themselves, not the questions. This would make all the answers different for each student, which could be helpful if you're trying to avoid any type of cheating, but you'll just have to keep in mind that your answers will need to not have things like the answer is both A and D, because then that could be different for every single student. So you'll keep that in mind if you're going to choose that. So we'll just choose that the way that it is. You can choose what you want to number the choices, and then you can go down to the answers section. So now we're going to put in the answers for this question. So for choice 1, we're going to put this answer is not correct, so you're going to leave this as none. The next answer we'll put is going to be the correct answer, so we're going to put a grade of 100%. And then we're just going to add 2 more answers in here just so they have choices. And those are going to be kept as none because those are incorrect. If we scroll down a bit here, you're going to see you have the option to add more choices if you wish. And that's all you need in terms of creating a question. So we're going to click Save Changes. And now you can see our question has been created. And inside of our Disney Trivia parentheses, it's now from 0 to 1, meaning there is 1 question inside of this particular category. So now we're going to add 1 more question, which will be a true or false. So we're going to create a new question. We'll do true, false, and press Add. And this is going to follow a similar process. You're going to put the question name in here, and then you're going to put the question text. The question status is set as ready. If you choose, you can make it draft. And then here under correct answer, you're going to put whether it is true or false. In this case, the question is false, so we're going to leave it as the default. But if it were true, you could just choose it from the drop-down menu here. And we're going to scroll down and choose Save Changes. So now we have 2 questions inside of our Disney Trivia category. And actually, if you were to come over to our default category, there are a few other ones here that are also Disney Trivia that we can include in this category as well. So I'm just going to check those off here. And we're going to click With Selected, move this to the Disney Trivia category. And now you'll see that 2 should change to a 6. So now we have our questions here. We have all of our questions added, and there are a few things here that I do want to point out to you, which is all of these options here that are new on the side. But I want to show you how you can now take these questions and add them to a quiz. So I'm going to go to the quiz itself that we had created here. So we're going to press Course, and then I'll go down to where it says Quiz 2. And then you can now add the question. You would click Add a Question, and then you'll choose how you want to add that question. If you wanted to just add questions to your quiz itself without a question bank, you could just click Add a New Question and then do it on the fly like that. Or we can do our question bank. Choose from question bank. It asks us which category, so we're going to pick the Disney Trivia category. And now we see these are all of our titles and the questions themselves. We can expand that question to see what it looks like by clicking on this little magnifying glass to preview it. And if you want to select all of them, you'll just click that top box and press Add Selected Questions to Quiz. Now our questions have been added to the quiz. You can also shuffle questions themselves by checking off Shuffle, and this will shuffle the questions, not just the answers. And if you want to change your maximum grade from in here from 10 to, let's say, 100, you can do that and press Save to save that. So now the quiz is ready to go. Students can take that quiz and move forward. So I want to go back to our question bank here because I just want to show you a few of these new features here that you haven't seen yet since they're new to Moodle 4.0. First thing here we have is usage. You can see where is this question being used. It's going to show you, if you click on it, every single quiz that the question has been used for and a preview of what it looks like. So we have the Cinderella question here. If we click on the 2, it's going to show us that it's being used in this course in Quiz 2 and in Quiz 3. It'll show has it had any attempts. It'll show if it doesn't have any attempts. You want to really keep in mind statistics in general. You can't rely on them 100% because a lot of factors are involved. So if you decided when you were adding a quiz if you were adding a question to a quiz, to pull a question randomly, the amount of attempts might not match the amount of users, since not every student might have gotten that question. So you'll want to keep in mind, you want to take these statistics with a grain of salt to just kind of give you a general idea of what you can expect when you're looking at these quizzes. So maybe you want to know, how is a question performing across the course? You want to know how it performs between semesters so you can compare that information. This is where these 2 things come into play: the facility index and the discriminative efficiency. So here we have the discriminative efficiency, and that helps you figure out if a question is too easy. How good of a job does it do discriminating between students who know the answer and those who do not? So maybe you want to know who the students are that are doing well on the quiz but can't seem to get this question right, Or maybe you want to know the students that are doing so poorly on the quiz, but they get this question right on its own. So that'll kind of determine whether a question is too hard or too easy. And you're looking for anything above a 50 for a good value. And in this case, I don't have an example for any of these questions, but as more students take the tests, you'll start to see these numbers populate here. Then you have the facility index here, which we do have some examples, and this will give you an idea of whether or not the question is too easy or not. And you're looking for a value here between 35 and 65. So you'll find that if there is a number that exceeds that or goes less than whatever those numbers are, Moodle is going to put a flag here in the needs checking section to kind of show you, well, maybe you want to take a closer look at this question. It might need to be changed. Maybe it's too hard, maybe it's too easy, and it gives you a general idea of what questions need to have work done on them. And again, these are just guidelines for you to take a look at. They're not something that you're going to put all your eggs in one basket. It's just to give you a general idea of what you're looking at. I mentioned before that if you needed to change the status of a question, you could go ahead and do that. You'll see that in this case, the Robin Hood question, this is version 2 of this question. So if I wanted to change it to the version 1, I could change this to a draft. So if I click edit and go into history, it will show me when the history is, when I changed it, what time I created it, things like that. And I could look at those same settings here, the facility index and the discriminative efficiency. So I could then maybe draft the most recent one and making the version 1 the ready one. So that way Moodle knows this is the version of the question that I want to use, the one that is ready. So that's how you could go in and you can change that. So we're going to go back here to questions so you can take a look at it. And then you have the comment section here. And the comment section is really only visible to the teacher and to an admin that might come in and have access to the course. So if you wanted to make a comment to yourself so that way you remembered something later, you can click on the actual number here. It'll open this. You can make a comment to yourself and say, change this question later, and then press add comment. And then that way you'll have it for yourself later to view, just as a note for yourself, and you can press close and see what that is. And you can see that this question has one comment on it. If I click on it, I can see what that comment was, and I can continuously update this and add more comments if I wish. So those are the basics of creating a question bank. This is definitely a very useful tool for you to have, especially if you're going to be using Moodle quizzes. You can do things in advance, allowing you to kind of organize yourself using the categories and pull those questions when you're ready to use them. Then with the use of status and versions, you're able to use these questions across multiple quizzes if you wish, and you have these statistics as well for you to kind of get an idea of what you're looking at.